Yesterday I delivered all the bookcases and the base cabinet to the project site, and now the shop has some room in it, and I took some measurements for the countertop slash desktop. I'm laying out boards now, and I want to start figuring out what boards I like. Now these will be cut in 2.5-inch strips, and they'll be glued together random length, kind of like a hardwood floor. So, but what I'm looking at now is I'm looking at board density and texture. So a lot of these boards, they have a lot of nice density to them, and you can see it as I don't know if they'll show up on the camera, but they have like a glassy look, and the green even has a heavy look to it. And the final test would be the weight of the board. And these boards are heavy, and they would make a nice tabletop. Now this board here, for instance, it is a lighter board. So even though they're all walnut, they don't always come out the same. I don't know what part of the tree this would be from, but it's definitely lighter, and it has a tinted look to it. It's not a glassy look. So you can probably see the difference between these boards. The one I'm moving is the lighter one. So I'm looking for heavy boards that will make a nice tabletop. In this step, I'm cutting the boards at different lengths, selecting as I go through, eliminating any large knots. Now what I'm doing here is I'm going to make one side of the board a straight edge, and I clamped the board on both sides, and I'll run it through the blade, and I'll have a straight edge on that side. Then I can use my fence to accomplish the next task of knocking them down to 2 5/8, and then when I run them through the planer, they'll be set at 2.5. So let's start the machine up and run some. Okay, we have them all planed up, and they're nice and square, and this is the stack which is going to make our countertop. And I started over here gluing up a few pieces. Now this is the way it's done. I start off with 3 boards, and these 2 back ones, this one here and this one over here, they intersect right here. Now this longer one here, this guy here, is the one that holds them straight. Okay, so we start off with a couple. There's just 3 boards gluing up. Okay, it is morning, the start of another day. We had to let this set up overnight. Yesterday I worked on it 3 times. I glued 3 or 4 boards up, and then I came back about 2 hours later and glued another couple up, and then at the end of the day I glued a little bit more up. So it's a slow process, the start of this, but once it gets going, it's going to start flowing. So I will take off the clamps now and start adding some more. Now I'll glue this and clamp this to the back. Now with that board glued into place, and I put another clamp here to keep this in. This was hanging over the plywood straight edge a little bit, only about maybe an eighth, and I brought that over. I looked down the line, everything's real nice and straight. So now I'll glue this one in, and we'll get that clamped up. A nice bead of glue here. And flatten that out. Once this glue dries, it will never come apart. The glue joint will actually be stronger than the wood itself. And then I put a nice bead here because I like to get both sides. And let it just ooze out. Side here. A nice tight joint. Okay. And we'll set the board into place now. We get one right here where the joint is. Okay, that's an hour and a half of drying, and what we can do is unclamp them now and we can add some wood. I just finished taking the clamps off, and it really came out nice. Now this is the underside. The other side is the top. This is the bottom. This will set on top of the cabinetry. Now I scraped all the glue down because the flattest I can get this, the better it'll go through the thickness planer. But we won't do that till next week. Now what I'll do is I'll take an aggressive sander and I'll knock this glue and any wood that's sticking up the best I can, because I want it to go through the thickness planer as easy as possible. But as you can see, it came out very nice. You can see how straight that line is, and that's what I want. I want a nice, straight, crisp line. Okay, I have the second set of wings for the angled workstation set out, and I have the first set over here under a fan, and they have been sitting here for about four and a half hours now. So I'm going to unclamp them and check them, and then glue the other two up, and that will take care of that. We'll let them set, and then we can start working them into our length countertop. But before we do that, we have to plane this, get it flat, sand it, and then we'll do the same over here. The angled workstations, and I ran them through the joiner a little bit, just a little bit to get a flat surface going. I don't want to take too much on the joiner because I only have a 3/4 inch board. And the rest I'm going to aggressively sand down, give me a nice flat surface, and then we'll run it through the thickness planer. Now this is our bottom side. This will be our top side. And let's run the sander. Now this is an 80 grit, and this is a very aggressive cutting piece of sandpaper. And that one feels nice. All my high spots are down. So we'll continue on with the next one. Okay, I'm going to set the planer, even though some of the boards are under 3/4. I'm going to set it because there are some high marks. So we want to get that straightened out. So I'm going to raise your planer up. I didn't know it was yours, but I guess it is now since I set it, and that may hold up in a court of law. Only kidding. We'll raise it up to 75, which is 3/4. And we'll get our planer running. I did here is I sanded this board down as flat as I could make it. Now, the reason I did that, two things. One, I can't get it through the joiner table because it's just too long. And number two is that when it goes through the thickness planer, it'll be flat. Any little ridges will actually telegraph through and lift it up into the cutter blades, and I don't want that. So I want to get as flat as I can, and actually, remarkably enough, it has come out very, very nice. I'm very happy with it. So now we're going to slide it through the thickness planer and get that taken care of. So let's do that now. Just made the pass through the thickness planer, made two passes, and she's at 11/16. She come out very flat, just the way I wanted to. So this is going to make a very nice tabletop. So what we'll do is we'll put the corners together, and then we'll have to clamp them up, and then we'll have to let them dry. But before I do that, I'm going to have to find the angles and cut them before I clamp and glue. Now what I did here is I trimmed this wing back to 40 3/4. So we have 40 3/4 here. We need 42, and I'm going to put a 1 1/4 wide block by 1.5 inches high. Okay, and that's going to be our nosing, and that's also going to happen here also. This here is 14 3/4, and then with a matching 1 1/4 by 1.5 nosing, and that's going to go all the way around. So as you see, it will happen all along this edge, along here, and all the way around. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to figure out these angles. So these angles are going to be 16 inches, but we're going to have to make them 14 3/4, and that's over here I'm referring to. 14 3/4, and then plus the 1 1/4 nosing will give it our 16. I laid it out, including and subtracting the edge molding. I have it clamped down nice and tight because I want it flat to the table all the way across. The other side here is the bottom side, so that's a little bit rough. This is our nice flat side. But I want my blade pulling down as it cuts because I don't want any tear out. This is the second line here that we're going to be running on. So I have it all laid out real nice and tight. It's up against the stop block here, and it's real tight up against the fence, as you can see there. And it's clamped over here, and we have a clamp over here. So let's run it through, and then we'll take a look at it and see how it pans out. So let me set this camera up, and we will run it through now. That was a nice cut, and I will gently take it out of its clamp because that edge, I don't want to muffle that edge in the least little bit. This is our nice straight edge there. We want to keep that intact. Okay. Now I'll take it over and we'll set it. Okay, I'll bring the camera over and we'll take a look at it. Now, as you can see here, this is 1¼ inches wide. This is going to be our nosing. Okay, so we have a 22.5 and a 22.5 degree angle. That'll be like that. And we have our 16 inches here, and then we need 16 inches over here. So we'll bring our molding around here and see how this pans out here. And as you can see, we are at our 16 inches right there. Okay, so this comes out really nice. Now we need 42 inches from here to here. And there's our 42 inches right here. Okay, now with the angles cut, I want to smooth them out. I want to get rid of these burn marks. There's a little bit of a blemish here. They are perfectly straight, but I want to run them on the edge sander and knock it down a little bit and get them nice and smooth. We're going to work on our second one now, and we will run a bead of glue into the spline a little bit, just a tiny bit, just like we did on the opposite side. And I'll get some more up here. Get our spline, put that in there. Okay, you can join it. And we'll get a clamp. It is a new day. It's 18 hours of drying time since this was clamped up, and we're going to unclamp it in a minute, and I just want to go over something with you. These over here is the moldings for the front nose of the countertop. So as you can see, they've been sitting up overnight, and these have also been drying for 18 hours. As soon as I got done doing this, I glued these up. So I'm about ready to unbundle these, and we're going to start joining them, get a square edge on one corner, or a 90-degree angle, and then we're going to run it through the thickness planer. Knock it down to a 1 1/4 inch by 1 1/2 inch, and start giving it a 22 1/2 inch miter in the corners, and get it glued on also. So let's work on that now. All right, now with that done, I will set the fence for 1 5/8. We need 1 1/2, so I'll set it for 1 5/8, and I'll knock a 1/16 off each side on the thickness planer. So let's right now set this for 1 5/8. And we'll give it a little bit of a check with our wood measure. We got 1 5/8. And let's lock our sliding table saw. Now this is the side of it's already cut. And with that done, we have 1 5/8. Now what I'm doing is I slipped a sheet of 3/4 inch plywood under. This is a good grade. This is what they call shop grade. It's inexpensive. It's for paintable cabinetry. It'll make a really nice backing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trace a line, and we'll insert it after the nosing's on. So here's a good opportunity for me to get the perfect footprint of it. Just traces out real nice. Okay, I cut a notch in the molding and in the face itself, and we're going to put the spline in there and then attach it. I also have it mitered at 22 1/2 on each side. So let's add some glue, and we'll put our spline in, and we'll clamp it and let it dry. Okay, the clamps have been setting these two sides for about 2.5 hours now. I'm going to release them, and I want to put this piece in here, and I want to try and get this piece in. That's all we're going to get in here today. So this one we'll have to let go tomorrow because these clamps will be in the way. So we'll just let that go. So let's get to work. Okay, let's glue this end one on here, and we'll get this started right now. So I'll put a little glue down on this edge here. Get both sides real nice and tight so it lasts 1,000 years. Now we want them to last. That's the idea. It takes a long time to build, but it'll be in service a lot longer. And that's what we want. Old world craftsmanship. And we'll get a nice bead in there. Let that drip out. Get that on there real nice. It's just take your time and do it right. People always say, Mike, you must be a really calm guy. You're a woodworker, and woodworking takes a lot of patience. Well, in woodworking I am. I'm a very patient person. But outside I'm like everybody else. I want to get things done fast, or I want to get to one place to another quick. So, but I guess because you're making money and you tend to slow down, and the time is allowed. So we'll get some right in here. Get a nice bead on that. And we'll get all surfaces covered. And we'll get it right in here real nice. Don't spare any. So I already dry tested it, or dry fit it, and look really nice. That slips in there like that. Now that wiggles so I can adjust it. And it'll grab, the glue will grab it. Get this corner real nice and tight. A little bit of pressure on that. It's a new day. I took the clamps off and flipped the top over, and we have